Hey everybody, welcome back to Stayin 2800. As always, am Brian, and Willie stayed in Westview, and he decided that WandaVision was too much, and that's where he's going to take up residence in the 2800. However, I have assembled the rest of our World Security Council for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 1, titled Episode 1 of 6. It's only going to be 6 episodes, unlike the 9 that WandaVision had, titled The New World Order. Kyle, how are you tonight?
Oh, just feeling great. Feeling interesting in this lighting, I will say. This is a horrible lighting.
It's very dramatic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nick, how are you?
Oh,
Thank you for being
I'm
here.
yeah, of course. I'm fine. I won't get into my personal shenanigans and general life derailment.
Well, if you need a friend, we're here for you after the show for
Oh,
sure.
100%. I will be just letting you guys have it.
All right, well, let's jump into it. Nick, I'm going to start with you. What was your overall opinion of episode 1 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
I I enjoyed it. I thought it had a lot of charm, a lot of strengths. Um I did find myself being more critical of heroes grounded in reality than I was of the magic lady and the invincible robot man. Like, I feel like it's a lot easier to have a suspension of disbelief when you could just be like magic, or like space magic or whatever. But these guys are pretty grounded, pretty down to earth. So there were a couple moments I found myself like snarking some decisions that they made, but it was all in good fun. Like, honestly, I think it had that same level of Marvel charm that I think we've come to expect from anything that they do, and I think the deeper character examination is something to look forward to. So I'm on for the ride. I've got my wings, and hopefully we don't fly too close to the sun.
There we go. I'm into that. I'm going to pick up a thread that you talked about, but Kyle, I'm going to pass it over to you. What was your first thought about episode 1?
I mean, we're back, baby. We're back
We're
in
back.
that action-packed, like Marvel punch you in the face while also making a snide comment to the bad guy who really doesn't give a shit about you. Like, I'm in. I am in because it's just because like
There we
the
go.
first 20 minutes you're like, oh right, this is clearly a Marvel production.
I'm gonna let you keep going. I'm sorry, I'm Kanye Westing your Taylor Swift right now. I'll just say that it really is a very long opening fight. It's honestly like runtime
Like,
10 minutes of
I
the
was
40
exhausted.
minutes. Yeah.
No, it was no. I mean, it's exciting. I think it was the tone. I like how they shifted the tone kind of from this very high to like kind of high to like kind of low a little bit and kind of just kind of evened out. But it's like it really it hits you. It hits you like
you,
a falcon.
you know what it's like is it sort of like that Rick and Morty uh interdimensional cable bit where like the dude does his zany thing
Yeah.
and then you just sort of like follow him off the set and the camera
Yep.
pans and you sort of
Yep.
see the studio that they're in,
Right.
and then he drives home in traffic and like whatever they pull it on you there. But like it opened very, very Marvel, like
Okay.
here's this intense fight, and then it's sort of like, and now here's what they do after that.
And now here's how
Like,
they get a loan at the bank.
right, like we're just following like the Falcon and the no good, rotten, downright terrible day.
Right. I just love the dichotomy of the episode where it was like you get this feeling and sensation of like, oh, Marvel action, all these things, and it's like you get the complete opposite end of like, this is how we struggle after some kind of terrible thing to the economy.
They kind of hinted at it in WandaVision. I didn't even think about it, but all the memes of her driving a fucking Buick,
Yeah.
like you just shapeshifted into a Lambo or something. Like that's literally your wheelhouse, pun intended. Like,
I was
so
excited to see. I never thought that this show would bring on the discourse of like, how do they afford things?
Right, there's that throwaway line in Ultron where Tony says, "I just design everything, build everything, and pay for everything."
Right.
But apparently he was not paying the Avengers, which is rough. But anyways, I loved this. I mean, I'm again, take everything I say with an entire grain of salt because this is literally a show made specifically targeted at me. But since Billy isn't here, I'm going to beat you guys over the head with my biggest thing about, I bring this up in every episode that we do of The Mandalorian and WandaVision, is that I'm a big stickler for story structure and why things are happening. So in WandaVision, I really struggled with that because I didn't really feel a lot of the character threads. I didn't really feel that we knew what the stakes were at any given time, or that anything was all that interesting. But I'm going to give you guys the threads as we have them in episode 1 and why I'm so pumped about the show and to keep going. We have Sam's place as Captain America, whether or not he's going to take up the mantle. A super interesting topic I really want to get into. Bucky's healing and also his recovery. We're going to get into more of that, but that's obviously going to be a big deal. The relationship between Falcon and Winter Soldier, the two of them didn't even talk in this episode, but we know that that's going to be part of the journey. Sam's family life with his boat and not being able to get a loan, and everything that's going on there. And then on top of that, we also have Zemo, assuming he's leading the Flag Smashers, or Zemo and the Flag Smashers. So in one episode, we have stakes, we have plot threads, we have external and internal battles for both of the characters to face. And we haven't even gotten to the meat of the show, which is the two of them. So I'm super in because I feel like this is exactly what I wanted from a first episode. Punched me right in the face with that opening 10 minutes. And then we're just already into amazing scene after amazing scene of character development with characters that I love. So I was really, really into it. Before we get to our in and outs, I just wanted to mention a few things over in Comics Corner. First, we get Batroc the Leaper back. If you'll remember him from Captain America the Winter Soldier, the beginning, he's the one Cap fights. He comes back. He is in the opening of this.
I was excited to see French Macklemore in this one. This was awesome.
I think someone mentioned that perhaps the fact that they're bringing in all these like disparate like B-level villains, that we could be having potentially leading to the Thunderbolts, which would be interesting. Not something I'm really tracking is going to happen, but it's an interesting thread I could see them pulling on. If Red Hulk ends up in one of these 6 episodes, like, it'll be the greatest show of all time. But
okay, well, let's not be all Mephisto.
That was, yeah, I was going to say that's literally my Magneto pitch. 2 more things to Comics Corner. At the end, the new Captain America is revealed. In the comics, that is John Walker. He is the U.S. agent, is his alias in the comics. He was Captain America for a time when Steve was Nomad, and he is U.S. agent now. Just kind of like a nothing character, to be honest. Like, that's just my personal feelings on him, but that's who that is. And then lastly, in the beginning of the episode, Sam is talking to. I don't really know if they identified who the young man's organization was, but he asked Sam if they brought Steve to a secret base on the moon, which I thought was great because in 616, that's where Uatu the Watcher lives. He has a secret moon base, and in one of the comics storylines called Original Sin, the Winter Soldier becomes this character called the Watcher on the Wall, taking up the place of Uatu as like this defense against. Yeah, this is really deep.
Original Sin was the one where Uatu gets murdered, right?
Yes. Original Sin is murdered. Eyeball. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Original Sin, he is murdered in his moon base. But I just thought that was the fact that they brought up a moon base and in a show about the Winter Soldier was fun. So yes, check out Original Sin, also available on Comixology Unlimited. But we will get to in and out. So I am going to assume, unlike WandaVision, that everybody is in on all of these things. So you're all going to have to tell me if you're out on
I want to challenge myself to find an out.
Yeah, find an out.
I have a couple.
And that's great. I'm glad. I want to get into it.
Right,
so we're going to
deletes me from the call.
Yeah, bye.
That's great.
We're going to start with the opening action scene. Kyle, I'm going to pass it to you because you talked about it a little bit, but give me your thoughts. Opening action scene.
No, I mean, I was in. I think they bring you right in. They don't, try to ease you into it. They just want you to know, like, oh, we're back. Like, we're back into classic Marvel action, especially with these two, because, like, we know based on Captain America's movies that, like, it's pretty action heavy. So
yes,
And they did a pretty good job of making it a little different, putting some stakes to it, while also introducing some other things happening. So yeah, I'm in. So fine, do more. Yes, great.
Nick?
I mean, I'll dip a toe, but
Okay.
so let me. And again, this is me being like, it's harder to forgive things in like grounded realism here. Uh Pretty sure that the physics people on TikTok were losing their shit over how those wingsuits functioned. Not necessarily the little raccoon, the flying squirrel suits they were in. That was a little much, maybe, perhaps. Uh do we know the significance of the person he was rescuing, or was it just a MacGuffin man? The MacGuffin man, Mamuffin man?
As far as I know, I don't think he was even name checked.
He said
So it could have
Sergeant
been
something or whatever.
could
It
have
was like,
been,
yeah.
it didn't flag anything for me. No.
So again, not necessarily a huge thing, like it's just a generic rescue or whatever. And I actually, in hindsight, I thought about it like, did they name Batroc at any point? Like, maybe I was drinking
No.
during this. They didn't name it. It was just he was using his legs, and I was like, oh, I think that's the French guy again.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, I was kind of like, we got this already. We got this in Winter Soldier, the movie, like named after like the thing, like. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but like, how cool would it have been if he was going up against like the Wrecker or something? Like do a different poll, give us a different B-lister. We've seen the Kicky guy. We beat the Kicky guy already. Like, was he dusted and reappeared, or did he break out during the blip? Like, I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter. But I was just sort of like, you guys could have stretched a little bit to give us someone different. But I want to go on record and just say that is just a total nitpick, just to bring it back down, because it's not an interesting discussion if we're all just like, into
This is
this.
the best show ever. No,
I
yeah,
will say I'll be disappointed if like they bring him back around on like episode 5 or 6, and it's like, oh, he's been helping out with this the whole time. And it's like, no,
it was
but I really
Batroc all
don't
along.
care. Right,
It's
like,
just
but I
a musical
really don't
montage
care.
of him kicking things.
Catherine Hahn makes an appearance.
Oh my God, what if he is Catherine Hahn? Yeah, what if it's also Agatha?
That would be amazing. All the Disney Plus shows, that's the secret. Catherine
For
Hahn
everything.
is the villain.
Mandalorian, yeah, all of it. All right, up next, Sam donates the shield to the Smithsonian, and surprise appearance by Colonel James Rhodes, or is it Lieutenant Colonel James Rhodes? I think he got a promotion at some point. Anyways, Rhodey is in there, and Rhodey's like, "What the fuck are you doing, bro?" Which I loved. I loved Rhodey being there. This is something, a nitpick of the greater MCU, something I've always been frustrated with, especially in Civil War, is why there seems to be like this animosity between Rhodey and Sam when they're both, in the Air Force. And obviously, I think Rhodey far outranks Sam, but I never felt this kinship. So I really liked the two of them together, and I would like to see more of that. Like, I actually love for Rhodey to be in this show more. And I know this is probably just Disney Plus's way of being like, hey, remember Rhodey? He's going to be in Armor Wars. Check that out. But I really liked him saying that Sam needed to take up the mantle. But I also liked at the beginning Sam denying the mantle, because he said it in Endgame, and mentions it again here, that the shield feels like someone else's. So, Nick, what was your reaction to Sam handing over the mantle?
So, it wasn't wholly unexpected. I originally, it's funny, until I heard your explanation, I was sort of like, why Rhodey? They didn't really have, like, Rhodey feels like an Iron Man pull, like not a Captain America tie-in, but your explanation kind of pulled me back in on it, like, oh, they have this kinship, and they did interact in Civil War, but I don't think the friendship or the relationship got the justice that it deserved.
No.
And I don't know that this cameo will necessarily build upon that, but it's just another example of like nurturing that. So I actually, in my internet deep dive, caught the unspoken tension there, like the the weirdly, and I think they address it later in the episode, the weirdly like racial discomfort uh of all of the meaning for Sam to take on the mantle of Captain America, and how unjustifiably difficult that would probably be given like real world climate and all of that stuff. So like there was, I don't know, it was, I forget the article it was. I think I might have even shared it with you, but it was sort of like there was a lot not said between them that you clearly got them like
Right.
sharing in that moment. Like, yeah, like, you know, he's for whatever reason like not comfortable taking that step. And I don't know, I think if the show executes that journey properly, you know, it's going to be a nice big fuck you, he's Captain America when it's all said and done. So
I loved that. I thought it was very authentic, and I did pick up on that subtext, and I do think ending the first episode with introducing the white Captain America by the same guy that takes the shield from Sam, saying thank you for this, you did the right thing, and then being the one to announce Walker is great. But Kyle, what did you think about the whole Smithsonian scene in Rhodey?
No, I'm mostly in. I think as much as I appreciated his, you know, again, kind of, we figured that he would have to struggle to do this. I almost would wish we would have more development in that, kind of to see more of his understanding of the concept, like you know, was kind of talking about, like understanding the weight of this and really not necessarily talking it out, but just going through the motions of like, how could I do this? And I guess I wish I would have explored that a little bit more, but I understand like they needed to introduce this larger scheme at hand. So no, I mean it gets me again. I'm really looking forward to them at episode 5 or 6 when he just takes the shield and goes, no wait, no, it's me. Like,
Yeah,
that'll be a nice payoff.
totally agree. All right, next up, Bucky's therapy / Bucky making amends. I'm sorry. Prior to that, and I'll just couple these two together, the Winter Soldier flashback. So I'm actually going to start with this one and say I'm a little out on the Winter Soldier flashback because we've already done this like a few times now. The flashback to the Winter Soldier being like the killing machine. Like we've got it in the movie Winter Soldier. We got it a lot in Civil War. Like we get it. This guy killed people. That was literally his job for 100 years. I didn't need to see it again other than it served the plot of him going towards making amends. I did like him in therapy, and I liked his like rules that he has to follow where he can't kill or hurt anyone and he has to like explain it to them. So I liked that, but I was out a little bit on the flashback. Kyle, what do you think about Bucky's therapy?
Yeah, I mean, the therapy session just made me laugh through the entire time because I think I hadn't thought about Bucky at therapy, and so seeing that on screen was just fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think the way they cut that with the making amends, like that was really well done.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with you. I think the flashback was a little jarring, and like for a second, I'm like, oh God, he's reverted back. Like I
Yeah.
was set up as well as they would have hoped.
Yeah.
Obviously, at the end, it's everything's fine, but no, I think you could have cut that out and still had as much weight of him with the note and then like at the door going, like I should have said something because they had I forgot his name, like he had talked about his son 2 or 3 times, and Bucky's like, yeah, it's so weird. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm mostly in.
All right, Nick.
I had a very different experience watching this because my wife and my oldest stepdaughter were just like, that's not how therapy works. Like, you can't cross that line as a therapist. Like, you're not making, why are you putting yourself into this situation? Like, I'm just hilariously like tearing her apart. I was just like, oh, come on, give the guy a break. He's murdered like hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess if Kevin Feige could be hiding in my broom closet, he could have popped out and been like, "Gotcha!" when I watched that scene, because I was just sort of like, "Oh, like, cool. Like the world's still a dump, and you know he's oh, this is before I got it. Okay, like, you know, I had that click moment, but like Sam killed a lot of those free fallen wingsuit guys, like in his opening sequence there. Like that kind of hit me like the heroes kill people. Like they're not like these guys are soldiers. Like they are
Oh
legitimately
yeah.
like they're this, and it's one of those things like, and I don't know if it's a holdover from like Batman doesn't kill people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like they
Yes.
have lines they don't cross, but it's like, no, these guys pretty indiscriminately will just take you the F out. Like, you know, so I enjoyed the connection, the payoff for the flashback was I think earned. And it was just cool to see. Like, I don't think that you could have done this opening episode with these two parallel storylines and not given some action to both of them. Like, I
Yeah.
think that that was done for, like, for everything in balance.
You're.
Like,
I think that's definitely a good call. Um, One other thing I want to point out there, it was a really nice moment, is when Bucky wakes up from his flashback, he is laying on the floor, which is actually a payoff to a moment in The Winter Soldier where Sam is talking to Steve about you can't sleep because your pillow feels like a marshmallow, and like as opposed to being over in the war
Huh.
and what it's like back home. So I thought that was a nice payoff to give that to Bucky to again tie those threads, tie Sam to Bucky. These guys have a lot more in common than they think. So I really like that there. Nick, that's a great point. I didn't even think about the fact that they needed to balance the action. I think that's exactly why that exists. It makes a lot more sense. All right, what do we think of, Nick? I'm going to start with you. What do we think of Sam's home life, his family, his sister, his nephew, and the subplot with the boat?
um, yeah, I mean, I guess to go back to my original Rick and Morty joke there, it was sort of like you get to see the Sam do like we're kicking ass, and then like it's not all glitz and glamour and Avengers compound, and like it really gives you the sense that he's acting alone, um, more or less. Like, sure, he's a contractor with the military, but it's not like he's writing to Doctor Strange, like, remember that time we saved the world, and like Thor's off world, like it's this kind of the same isolation that we got from Wanda. And I realize that that's a mechanic of these Disney Plus shows. Like I get that they're like vignettes for the characters. Um, but I think it's effective at showing like his personal struggles. Like we get to click the microscope zoom into 25 times magnification and be like, you know, did Sam get stuck in traffic? Did he get like denied a bank loan? Is his family business like in danger? Like he's got this. it- it's interesting. Like his sister is on the side of like I'm ready to move on, and he's like holding on to this house and this boat. And I don't think we know why yet. And I think we will get there because
Yeah,
I think the writers are smart and like they will give us that payoff. Um, but I think it kind of it created like instantaneously a more dimensional person for him to
Mhm.
see him interact with children and a dumbass loan officer, like, you know,
the
and like
loan scene
let
is
him,
great.
yeah, it's you kidding me, man. Like
Yeah,
I mean it was kind of reminiscent of, yeah, everyone knows Ant-Man, right? Like
yeah,
you
It's
know,
me,
God,
Ant-Man.
like just to have that difference of experience, and obviously that was pre-blip and all this other whatnot, but um yeah, I enjoyed it. Again, it was I think it served a purpose. Um I think it was a highly functional transition, like a thing to kind of,
yeah.
you know, pass it along. And I think eventually his stuff with the Flag Smashers, and obviously our assumption is with Zemo and all of that is going to um pull Bucky in and give him some other sense of purpose. I'm assuming. I mean, we have no idea, but to see that, to see the therapist go through Bucky's phone and be like, "You haven't answered a text from Sam in weeks," like,
Yeah,
so at least he's putting an effort out there.
that's right. Kyle, what do you think of Sam's home life and Sam's denial of a loan?
Well, I don't want to just outwardly say I liked it because I didn't.
Right.
I liked how he played with this struggle of like I'm like he didn't outwardly say I'm an Avenger. Can you please help me with this loan? But like with the whole like that was I don't know, like how do you balance that? And I think that was his way of navigating that while also trying to say like, well, we didn't get it. Let's just keep going because that's what we have to do. We have to keep going. We can't just hang our heads and do nothing. That was interesting because then I think you're right. I think we just see this other dimension of heroes that, after you come home from war, what do? What is the transition? And I think another thing that this shows too is the different levels of loneliness with Bucky. You saw like actual isolation, like actual like he is a loner, and I think what's exciting for this show is that it's going to both play on and play against the loner trope, where you're this loner who just does his own thing, and that's not necessarily like goes against working with other people, but clearly has an issue with working with other people. Whereas like Steve was the one person probably that these two characters actually worked well with, like the one person, and now Steve's gone, and so you have this like two friends who had this mutual friend, and so they're like, oh well, I guess we have to talk now. Like I think it's kind of like these small moments make me more interested to see how these actual just beings will communicate with each other when their mutual friend is on the moon. So
Exactly. All right, next up, Bucky's date. I'm actually gonna say I'm a little out on this. I thought it was sweet and nice, but it is obviously in service of Bucky, leading Bucky to the moment of his needing to make a redemption at the old man that he's friends with, because that is the flashback that he killed this guy's son, and he knows it, and he's been friends with him to try to make some amends. So that was the only part of the date that I didn't love, as being like it was just kind of a plot convenience more than anything else. So, Nick, what did you think of the date?
I mean, he kind of followed his rules. He wasn't lying to anyone. He is 106, but she took it as a joke because, whatever. And the gloves, whatever. That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was slow. I think I was fetching things for my fellow viewers when I was watching this, so it was sort of like, oh my god, like I had like a heavy realization of like, oh dear, like and all I could think was like, you're a smart guy. This is clearly the wrong way to go about this. Like, don't get attached to the person you need. This is like the entire plot of Dead to Me, like in this one subplot here. Like, you don't get close to the person you need to like come clean with, because that just makes it harder,
Right.
and it's not going to go well. But I mean, the rest of the date was fine. I mean, I like that he's still like that cheese ball, like hero flower. Like she comments like, what did she say? Like, this is like
It's extremely old
something my
fashioned.
grandpa, something my grandpa would do.
And I like that he's true to his roots. Like that felt like something Steve would do, which I think by proxy gives him a pass to be, it's like in the trailers. Like, I read The Hobbit when it came out in 1937. Like, okay. Yeah, you're old. We get it.
Yeah.
Weird flex, but okay.
Yeah. It's not something to brag about, man.
Something to brag about. But yeah, I thought the date was sweet. Kyle, what do you think of the Flag Smashers?
Different. So I don't really have much background with any of the comic stuff for Falcon Winter Soldier. So like introducing this concept of like, well, we just want open borders because like the blip happened and now here we are. Like we just want this to happen. Thought that was different. I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know. I wish they would have teased more out in terms of like maybe more sightings, like seen some video and like just to get a bit more instead of just like, oh, these guys are super strong and do these weird random events like it was a flash mob. But I'm intrigued.
Smashers.
Flash mob smashers. Yeah, it's interesting, and I think Brian, you mentioned too. Like, I'm interested to see the relationship with Zemo. Like, if he's just behind it again, like classic Baron Zemo, or if he's gonna just be like, hey, you guys want to do that? I'll help you. Like, that's fine. So we'll see. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if their logo was like the white fist of Sauron, like the hand of Sauron, like on their face. If that was like his purple hand, like I didn't know if that was that. But yeah, I'm not sure. Um, I'm in on the Flag Smashers just because the main female is played by the same person that played Enfys Nest in the Solo movie. And so I'm just like, yes, let's go. Enfys Nest is back in action. So I'm in on that. I am interested to see what they do with it. I hope it is a proxy for Zemo, just because I'd rather just get into it sooner rather than later than having a couple more disparate groups that will have to be tied together. I'm all in for cohesion early on, but I will say that the I was a little confused about. Again, I'm just a little confused about what that guy, like what organization he is with, and like how he relates to Sam. Like, is this Avengers business? Is this military business? Is this something else? But Nick, what do you think of the Flag Smashers?
Well, just to piggyback off of the last thing, I think it's military business. Like I was
Mm,
under the impression like they talked about Libyan airspace in the beginning,
yeah.
and I couldn't help but make Back to the Future jokes like, you don't hit 88 miles per hour in those squirrel suits there. The Libyans are coming anyway. Um, but I don't know. I think the Flag Smasher motivation sounds very Zemo, like destroy things from the inside, like let people like tear it apart. So like I think that the message is going to be good. Like in quick summary, all I could think was the thing that would unite the world, you'd think would be an alien invasion, and then the last 4 years happened, and I'm like, no, there are definitely people who would actually side with the aliens, I guess. Um, and now we have this like crisis. These people, like, I think WandaVision did a really good job of capturing the immediate fallout of the blip. Like Spider-Man kind of framed it like the way the nihilist Gen Z folks will. They literally named it the blip in the movie, and that's literally what the world is calling it now. And like you sort of see, and they're just moving on, like they're doing stupid stuff. Like I'm 21. It's like he was blipped. He's only 16. Like, great. Like WandaVision kind of takes a deep dive into like the actual chaos and emotional trauma that created for some people, and how they have to, how a regular person picks up, and carries on with that. And I kind of like that this is taking us into the geopolitical landscape of like what people would believe is best in a world where we saw what it was like without 50% of the people. Like maybe the answer is erasing all national borders and just uniting the world. Like, and I think that that's probably like, I don't know. I don't want to speculate that that's going to be like the sexy messaging we'll get to to like Zemo seducing people into this cult or whatever. But I think it's a very Zemo move
Yeah,
to
agreed.
to do that. So I think you'll get your wish that this is just a quick transition. Like the reveal will be he's behind it the whole time.
Mhm.
To Sam and Bucky anyway.
Yeah,
Or maybe Agent 13 provides us with that information in a future episode.
yeah,
Um, I think a real twist will be like U.S. agent is in on it, and Hail
yeah,
Hydra again.
yeah. Going
We'll hit
crazy
that beat.
theory. Yeah, I don't know if I could do another Hydra thing, but
Do it.
the fact that U.S. agent could be positioned as a villain is interesting to me.
Yeah.
But the one last thing on Zemo, I love the fact that they are dealing with like the blip again. I mean, I'm not sure. I love that we are calling it the blip like in universe, but we are. So I just love the fact that, like Nick said, Spider-Man, WandaVision, and now this have dealt with it in different ways, in interesting ways, and that we are constantly faced with this. So yeah, at the end of the episode, John Walker is introduced as the new Captain America. Sad for Sam. But let's get into kind of the meat of this. And I'm going to start by pitching to you what I think about my first question, which is, has the MCU made you care about Bucky and Sam? Which I think is a lot of people's wall with this show is, I don't really care about either of these two guys. Um, I care about them from the comic standpoint and from the MCU standpoint, my issue with their MCU counterparts are one, Sam is constantly disrespected. Like Sam loses almost every single fight that he's in. Like he gets his ass kicked by Ant-Man in the Ant-Man movie. He gets his ass kicked by Iron Man when he tries to save Rhodey after Vision snipes him. Yeah, I mean it's like he's like comically disrespected over and over again. And Falcon in the comics is a very capable, extremely ass kicking, soldier, and not ever the way I always read Captain America. It wasn't like Falcon is Captain America's sidekick the way Bucky was. Like it was Falcon and Captain America were partners in all of their missions. So that's how I have always viewed Sam and the Falcon is. He is an Avenger in his own right, incredibly strong. And I always have hated the disrespect that the MCU gives Sam. But I do care about him because I think Mackie puts such personality and heart into him. And Bucky, my issue with Bucky is that in the Winter Soldier, he was this like incredible force of nature that like everyone was afraid of. Like he kicked the shit out of Captain America. Black Widow, who we've never seen be afraid of anything before or since, in that overpass scene, is like visibly scared about the Winter Soldier and that she's going to die. He fake kills Nick Fury. Like he is this unstoppable force of nature, and I think since that moment they've really watered him down a ton. Like he's still capable in Civil War, and he fights Iron Man a little bit, but then Iron Man kicks the shit out of him at the end of Civil War. So it's like they can't. The MCU has this larger problem with power levels on where everyone is at all times, but those are my two things. I think Sam is constantly disrespected, and I think Bucky has been watered down a bit. So I'm interested to see them turn the tables. But I can see why people might be hesitant to this show and not care about either of them. Nick, you look like you are want to go first on this. So how do you?
I do.
Okay.
So thank you. So the really simple answer to the question of do we care enough about them as characters? The answer is no. It's just a flat no.
Yeah.
But I think that was true of Wanda, Vision. I mean, Loki might be the exception to that as far as getting a Disney Plus. Like that feels like the one where it's like fanfare gonna fanfare kind of thing. And as far as like all of the future shows go, I don't know if there are any other people crossing over from big screen into, I don't know off the top of my head, but I mean that's the answer is no. Like I think this is a vehicle to do that.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about it in terms of Sam's constant disrespect. Like even Widow being like, I'm not thinking that thing at the beginning fight of like all this stuff. Like it's funny because he like whatever bird costume, like that joke again in Civil War, like they get the claim check for that. Like there should be other people with his skill set, right? Like he's like, I never said I was a pilot or whatever. Like he says to him, when there's this big reveal that he's got this prototype wingsuit, and he lost his partner, so maybe they were the only two, but they didn't do anything else with this program, and they let him keep the gear. Like I guess my thinking is this, like, yeah, he's a skilled soldier, but he is not much more than that. And I feel like Bucky got some Hydromind wipe. Did he get? Are we clear on? Does he have any kind of like Captain America like proto serum in him or something, like some kind of version of that makes him like able to keep up, or is it literally in his arm?
Zola did experiments on him.
Okay,
so he is slightly enhanced. It's
slightly
not a
enhanced
super soldier serum, but he has something. Stuff. Yeah.
Okay, I kind of thought so in all of my reads of it. I disagree with his watered downness. I think the fight sequence where he breaks out, where Zemo reprograms him in Civil War, and he is like no empathy, like killing machine. Like he goes up against Panther, he goes up against Cap, Widow, Agent 13. Like it's a pretty big free for all. And sure, Tony takes him out, but that's fucking Iron Man 1-on-1 Thanos at one point, like different suit of armor. but in terms of like how he'd scaled up his abilities at that point, and I don't think Bucky was going for a kill. I think Bucky was going for neutralization, because if Bucky wanted to kill Tony, I think he could have. So
Yeah.
I don't know that it's been watered down so much as they've just been like wildly unpredictable with his power levels based on his own mental stability.
Well, I think you make a good point that maybe I'm reading the wrong way into it, and that the Winter Soldier is that, but Bucky is not. So
Right.
I think that makes more sense.
That's
Actually.
I like that distinction.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point to make. So that's as far as that goes. I have friends who are just like, I don't care about either of these guys. Like, why would you put them together? And it's sort of like, yeah, there are a lot of people who didn't give a crap about Cable and Deadpool, but they put them together to save money on paying royalties to Rob Liefeld. But the comic was great. Like, you don't think it's gonna be good, and then give it a chance. So
Yeah. They get a chance to shine. Yeah, and Nick, before I pass it over back to Kyle, and just on Sam and the wingsuit. Yeah, and again, they don't do a great job of showing how awesome Sam is, like regardless of wingsuit or not. Like when he's not in the suit in like Winter Soldier, he's like, I'm grounded, and he goes and he fights proto Crossbones, which is fine. But yeah, if you like take that away from him, he doesn't really get his Iron Man moment of billionaire, playboy, philanthropist, whatever Iron Man says, genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. But he really does have that in the comics. And again, he's much more fleshed out in the comics. So I'm excited for this show to show us how capable and how great Sam is. They've tried to do that in a bits of dialogue where there's like that moment in Winter Soldier where Nick Fury asks Sam like what he's about, and Sam says, "I do exactly what Cap does, just slower." So they're setting the stage. But Kyle, what did you think about Bucky and Sam prior to the show? Do you think the MCU did a good job of setting them up, or?
I think they did a decent job of setting them up in the hero sense. Kind of what we're alluding to is like you have this the personas of like your superhero name and then your real people name. So I think they're doing a good job of now introducing and diving more into like who is Sam Wilson and like what else is he capable of, and same thing with Bucky a little bit. I think and that's why I'm excited for these shows. Not only WandaVision and Winter Soldier, and of course Loki, who isn't, but like they're developing Miss Marvel, she's interesting in her own right. I'm excited for that one. Moon Knight. Moon Knight's very interesting, and no one's like, who the hell is Moon Knight, and why should I care? Like Moon Knight's very interesting, and I'm excited for that one. But it's like these series are cool because you get to have these small moments of the characters. You could obviously get to have these big punchy action scenes too, but I think it'll be cool to see these moments that make us give a shit about them as people, not just like I'm gonna go save the world again. Like that's part of the whole. If the comics isn't just always punching. It's like, oh yeah, I have to go home still.
And they give them their individual series to do that. I was, as you were saying this, I wanted to point out that there were some very successful Netflix shows that did exactly that, but they didn't have. And I think the hype that we have about this is that this is like 100% sanctioned, going in, no trepidation, no hedging on success or whatever. Like it is a fully realized integration of the movies we've been watching since 2008 to develop these characters, like, because they're like fundamentally I think there was very little wrong with most of Daredevil, with most of Jessica Jones, with the early Luke Cage stuff. Like to have that level of integration, to see these people pop in or them the other way, like that would have been huge. And I think I almost feel like those were springboards for Marvel to do these shows on Disney Plus. Like, right. Oh, we licensed it to Netflix, and then they realized how popular they were. And I almost think that without those shows, we wouldn't even have. Maybe we would have Disney Plus, but I find it less likely that they would have taken a chance on something like that knowing that there was such a demand for it. Sorry, you mentioned like Moon Knight and all these characters, and I was like, that easily could have been John Berthal's Punisher. Like,
Right. Oh yeah. I mean,
like,
look at. I mean, it's the same idea with some of the movies they made. Like nobody knew who Guardians of the Galaxy were, or like not the mass populace didn't know who they were. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, no, this is actually really good anyway.
I
Like,
love this raccoon in this
Now,
tree.
right now, everyone
Right.
loves Groot and Rocket. Yeah,
Of course.
exactly.
And so I think they're granted they have the money to fund things that are a little different, but I think people will love. But like that's exciting to people who are like, oh my god, yeah, I remember reading that. Like Miss
Yeah.
Marvel is actually really interesting, and her story is kind of neat and different, and that'll be just a different story to tell. But they can.
Right. Or better still, I mean, even Marvel kicking it off with Iron Man, who at the time was
Exactly. A nobody.
generously B-list.
Well, and the only
Marvel.
reason why they ran with Iron Man is because in a test for toys, the kids are like, "Oh, this one's cool."
Yeah.
They're like, "Okay, that one, do that one."
Right, and what they had the rights to. But
Leave the
okay.
alcoholism out.
Yeah, leave the alcoholism. Or we're going to mention it one time. What threads are we looking to see throughout this show? Because in WandaVision was like speculation station. It was like 1,000 magic things, 1,000 vision things. Like, what are we doing? Is it reality? Yeah, I mean, I think we were all looking for the X-Men. Honestly, hand to God, I really thought this show was going to end with Magneto. Like, I really would have bet anything that that's how they were going to end that show. So, I mean, I guess I'm crazy for that. I'm just going to start by saying I have absolutely zero expectations other than if this show doesn't end with Sam as the new Captain America, that it's a total failure, because like it needs to end. Like that is the logical conclusion of this show. Now, I'm not saying Bucky can't also be Captain America, because there's precedence for that comics wise.
He was Captain America first, right?
Yes, he was Captain America first. Yep. But I don't really have any other long-term, like I'm not expecting to see the Thunderbolts. I'm not expecting to see Daredevil. Daredevil's in the show. Let's go. Especially if he is Charlie Cox. But
gotta wait till Spider-Man.
Yeah, gotta wait till Spider-Man. Kyle, let me start with you. What are you expecting out of this show?
No, I'm kind of expecting the same thing. I think I have some well in my rights hesitancy to have any other theories other than Sam becoming Captain America, because we know that is a thing. I'm gun shy at this point. WandaVision has made me gun shy to theorize certain things. Would I love to see, Baron Zemo become more than just this guy going through grief and causing disruption? Sure. I'm hoping they give him a little bit more light, because he's not as big of a name as the big hitters. But I really don't have any like. I have some theories already about what it's going to happen in the next 5 episodes, but it doesn't I'm not going to be disappointed if it goes one way or the other. It's just a thought.
That's why I think this show is Disney Plus's and Marvel's to lose, because I don't know if a lot of us have expectations. Nick, what do you think?
I guess I'll complete the Triforce here with obviously Sam should become Captain America by the end of this. I feel like that was sort of the marketing, that was sort of the journey that was clearly set in all of the trailers and the opening sequence with the final moments of the first episode. Like, you done effed up, like, and we've seen him practicing with the shield, so like he gets it at some point, and that would be cruel of them to literally tease that, and then we get that at like episode 6 minute 50. Like, that's how the whole series ends, and they put it in the marketing. Like, I
wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
That'd be crazy. But as far as other expectations, I guess just thinking about the larger MCU, and just real expectation. Like the reason I think WandaVision, the reason I don't think I was expecting mutants the whole time with WandaVision, playfully so when they introduced Evan Peters, obviously, it seemed more of a possibility in that moment. But looking back in hindsight on the release of the original release schedule pre-COVID pandemic, it wouldn't have been feasible, I think, for them to have slipped that in. Like, they were supposed to start with Widow, and we were supposed to have the Eternals already, and it's kind of interesting that they're continuing with these without having that context in there, and it's sort of like they could have done Thor minus the post credits, um, or Iron Man, whatever, the Iron Man's, the Thor, like you could have done the very early MCU mostly out of order, and it wouldn't have really affected the story all that much. So I guess I'm looking at this as not completely clean slate, but I'm sort of thinking, where are these characters going to go after this? Like based on what we've seen them present for Phase 4, a second season of this. Like I don't see them popping up in much. Like we know Wanda's leading into Doctor Strange, and that would have been a very difficult thing for them to hide. But is there an opportunity here for them to introduce a young Avenger and sort of like tease that? Is there is there opportunity for them to introduce like a villain? Like maybe Zemo becomes a real threat. Maybe they don't wrap it up nicely. I just thinking about the things that they could do based on historically what they have done. It's, again, no expectations, but it's fun to like play around with the chess pieces a little bit and just say, what can they get away with? What are they setting up? I mean, they've got Sword, when they've got whatever the reality monitoring, what is it, Arc? No, it's something else with Loki, the time monitoring something or other.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's comics. Like what's dead doesn't necessarily die. Like I actually for a hot second was like, maybe they'll kill one of these guys. Like maybe I don't know, that would be a terrible injustice, but
I mean, if it works for the story, but I think you make a good point that there are definitely potential larger universe implications. Now, we do have to remember that this was actually supposed to come out prior to WandaVision. This was supposed to be the first one out the gate, and got moved around because of the pandemic. But some interesting things that you mentioned, Nick, and I definitely think if you look at Disney Plus's slate of these shows, I think you need to set, because after Endgame / Spider-Man, there is no Avengers. Like there's no team that we're following. So we need an Avengers. Is going to be a big thing, and I do think that there will be multiple Avengers team now, whether that's West Coast and Young Avengers. I think Young Avengers is definitely in play because of the shows that they're launching. And so I wouldn't be surprised about that.
Yeah, the Hawkeye show is like the big one for that.
Yeah, for sure. But I also think we could get a West Coast or at least a satellite team somewhere else.
Yeah, they already did the Defenders.
They did
maybe Defenders, they redo the Defenders.
Maybe they redo the Defenders and they have a street level team. So I could see things branching off.
Secret
but
Avengers.
if there is an Avengers, there needs to be a Captain America. And I think perhaps Sam taking up that mantle will serve as, maybe it's Sam's mission to get everyone and rally a team to his cause with Winter Soldier as his backup. So I think there are definitely things in play.
I will say that if that is how they want to do it, they have a lot of character development on the road ahead of them.
Yeah.
To get Sam to that point as he's been presented in the MCU, because I don't think he has that arc. Like the one thing the first Avenger did, like I know people who hated that movie. Like they really disliked the very first Captain America. I was like, really? That's strange to me.
Yeah.
They preferred Thor over it, and I was like, really? Yeah, it was one of those. I was like, really? You take the Norse god over just the really enhanced, like
Captain
the way
America.
they treated guy in suit, guy with super soldier serum, literal god. Like of the three, they presented them in the right order. Like with an enormous green rage monster mixed in. I think the original. My cat is yelling really loud. If you hear that, I'm sorry.
It's because you mentioned the Incredible Hulk, and Marvel does not like you to mention that.
Right. No, I will say that the original, like, love it or hate it, I think the original Captain America, the very, very first Avenger movie there, it carried a lot of weight. Like, it really got you to give a shit about Steve. And and again, in a time when Iron Man and Cap and like they were the B list or the C list even because they had already auctioned off Spider-Man and X-Men to separate studios. Like I don't know. I think that if the purpose of the show is to get Sam positioned to be Captain America and the leader of an Avengers team that can't exist without a Captain America, like if that is your like logical clause, like Avengers team must have Captain America, and if all running theories are that Sam will be that person, like then I will argue that this show has a long way to go to get us to seeing him lead that team.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm actually excited to see can they do it.
Yeah, I don't know if Sam needs to be the leader so much as because I think that role will just by knowing comics and business will just immediately fall to Carol Danvers. But I think Sam is a good conduit because we have so much history with him in the MCU. But I do think they would be able to pull off that arc and it would be believable towards the end. Yeah, and I would just like to point out the fact that anybody other than me that tells you that they were a fan of the character Captain America before 2008 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a liar because I would have found you and we would have been friends, but there are none and I was alone. So anybody now that is a fan of Captain America, welcome to the bandwagon because, we're rolling. But I do think that that is a thread for Sam and a logical conclusion. And again, comic precedent because all new, all different Marvel. Sam was Captain America, and he was the Captain America on the Avengers, and he was Captain America for a long time. So I see that for him. I like that. To say what the kids say, I like that journey for him. So I'm into it.
Just reminded me of a conversation I had in high school when I was reading the Ultimates, and they ask, "Oh, there's the cat." They ask, they tell him to give up, and he goes, "You think this A stands for France?" And just like beats the bejesus out of someone. Like Ultimate was looking back on it, those were bad comics. Yeah, I liked them as
Ultimate Spider-Man is great, but
Ultimate Spider-Man is great, but the Ultimates and like
the Ultimates are terrible.
Yeah, there were some bad moments. Didn't the Hulk eat like 700 people?
It's a dark time. We don't talk about it. That's crazy. Why that universe exploded, and the only thing they kept was Nick Fury and Miles Morales. The two. Miles Morales is again the only other thing to good come out of the Ultimate Universe.
One thing, and I know I already definitely said I don't have theories.
Yeah.
I have a theory.
Yeah.
I have a theory. Is it bunnies?
I have a theory. That I'm wondering if, because we kind of talked about how there's really no logical sequence in terms of movies for either of these two characters to really land in a role clearly.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's something that hasn't been announced yet.
Like Captain America 4?
Or something that definitely will involve a Sam Wilson. I could see them saying at the end of this, the last episode, like, Sam Wilson will return, like something to that effect, and then and then I don't know, like the next day
they just give us a Sega Genesis,
will return.
Right? Or something to that effect, like where like they have something already in the works, but they haven't, because of all the delays, they haven't said anything about it yet.
Yeah.
And so that would be like a pie in the sky for me if they could do that. Like that would be a fun payoff.
I'd be into it because I think that we are gonna have to start getting some. Like, there's going to have to be an Iron Man 4 at some point. Now, whether that is after Armor Wars, and I would assume, the introduction of Riri Williams as Ironheart. But I think we're just going to have to start getting that. And now that Jane Foster is becoming Thor in Love and Thunder, and Thor is joining the Guardians of the Galaxy, I think that we're going to start seeing second act, trilogies for the main trinity of the MCU. So, super interesting. Yeah. I think there's a lot at play, and I think a lot is going to ride on how much this or how successful this show is. But gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on the first of 6.
Wow.
I know, it's sad. Count them 6, and then after a little bit of a break, much more than we got of one after WandaVision, we will have Loki to talk about. But
I'll be
We'll be
there.
back. We'll be back next week talking episode 2 of the greatest TV show since The Mandalorian ended. So, thank you again for being here with me. And as always, take what you can and give nothing back. Good night, guys.